Hazel Monroe learned it very early that power didn't ask for permission, it demanded sacrifice. At 38, she stood at the glass wall of her top-floor office, the city burning gold beneath her like something she owned. Cars moved like obedient ants. Buildings bowed to her height. Her name was stamped on contracts, factories, and international deals. People said her name carefully, respectfully. Hazel Monroe didn't build an empire by waiting. She built it by choosing work every single time love asked her to stay. The day her divorce papers were finalized, she didn't cry. She was in a board meeting when her lawyer's email arrived. Hazel skimmed it between two presentations, signed digitally, and moved on to quarterly projections. Her colleagues applauded her confidence. What they didn't see was the faint tremor in her fingers when the meeting ended. What they didn't know was that her marriage hadn't ended with a fight but with silence. Long nights, missed dinners, conversations postponed until they disappeared completely. That night, Hazel returned to an apartment that felt more like a hotel suite than a home. The walls were clean, expensive, and empty. She poured herself a glass of wine she didn't want and Saturday on the edge of a couch she never used. For the first time in years, there was no schedule waiting for her. No one asking where she was. No one expecting her to come back early. And strangely, that freedom felt heavy, suffocating. She told herself this was success. This was what she had chosen. Still, the silence pressed against her chest like a question she had avoided answering for too long. Weeks passed. Hazel threw herself deeper into work, reopening factories, expanding production, flying between cities like rest was optional. Her largest manufacturing plants managed remotely demanded her physical presence. Investors wanted reassurance. Employees wanted leadership. So she went. Steel machines roared. Conveyor belts moved endlessly. And thousands of lives depended on her decisions. This place made sense to her. Numbers behaved. Systems obeyed logic. People did not. On her third day at the factory, a machine jammed during peak production. Supervisors panicked. Workers frowned. Hazel walked onto the floor in heels that didn't belong there. Sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp. She noticed a man already working near the machine, calm, focused, hands steady despite the noise. He wasn't calling for attention. He wasn't afraid to get dirty. He simply fixed what was broken. When the machine restarted, production resumed like nothing had happened. Hazel stared longer than she intended. Later, she asked his name. Ethan, someone said. Maintenance, night shift mostly. She nodded, pretending it was just another data point. But something about him stayed with her. The way he didn't look intimidated by her presence. The way he spoke only when necessary. There was no hunger in his eyes, no desire to impress, just quiet confidence. It unsettled her. That evening, Hazel found herself lingering on the factory floor. After everyone else had left, she watched workers clock out to lives she no longer recognized. Families, dinners, tired laughter. For the first time, her success felt oddly distant from happiness. Her marriage replayed in fragments, unanswered messages, anniversaries missed. A husband who slowly stopped waiting. She had believed love would understand, that it would be patient. She was wrong. In her hotel room that night, Hazel sat her day by the window instead of opening her laptop. She wondered when had winning started to feel like losing. When had independence turned into isolation? She had proven she could survive alone. But survival wasn't the same as living. And deep down, a truth surfaced that frightened her more than failure ever had. Strength didn't mean never needing anyone. Maybe it meant knowing when you did. The next morning, Hazel requested a full walkthrough of the factory, unusual for someone at her level. As fate would have it, Ethan was assigned to assist. Their conversation was simple at first, professional, careful, but in the pauses between words, something shifted. He spoke about his work with quiet pride. She listened not because she had to, but because she wanted to. For the first time in years, Hazel wasn't being admired or feared. She was just seen. She didn't know it yet, but this factory, this ordinary place, was about to dismantle the life she had built so carefully, and the man who worked within its walls was about to challenge everything she believed about power, love, and what it truly meant to be whole. When walls begin to crack, Hazel had always believed emotions were distractions and invited guests that arrived unannounced and overstayed their welcome. Yet, over the next few days at the factory, she found herself noticing things she never had before. The rhythm of the machines felt less mechanical, the air less suffocating, and every time she walked the production floor, her eyes searched without permission for Ethan. Their interactions were brief, professional, almost accidental, and not here, a quiet exchange there, but something unspoken lived between those moments, growing heavier with every passing day. Ethan was different from the men Hazel had known. He didn't flatter her success or resent it. When she spoke, he listened it as an employee trying to impress a powerful owner, but as a man who respected her as a person. One afternoon, during a sudden power outage, they found themselves waiting near the loading bay. Silence filled the space, not awkward but thoughtful. Hazel surprised herself by speaking first, asking about his life. Ethan answered simply, no drama, no exaggeration. He spoke of long shifts, a modest home, and the satisfaction of fixing things that were broken. Hazel realized how long it had been since she had spoken to someone who wasn't asking for something in return. As days turned into weeks, Hazel began arriving at the factory earlier than required and leaving later than necessary. She told herself it was responsibility, efficiency, but deep down, she knew the truth. Around Ethan, she didn't have to perform strength. She didn't have to prove anything, and that scared her. Her divorce still echoed in her mind, her ex-husband's final words, replaying like a wound that never fully healed. You chose success over us. Back then, she had dismissed it as weakness. No, standing among workers who had lives beyond deadlines, she wondered if she had been wrong. One evening, Hazel received news that shook her controlled world. Her ex-husband had moved on quickly. The information hit harder than she expected, stirring emotions she thought she had buried. That night, she stayed late at the factory, unable to face the quiet of her hotel room. Ethan noticed her lingering and asked, gently, if she was all right. The question was simple, but no one had asked her that in years. Hazel hesitated, then answered honestly for the first time in a long while. She admitted she didn't know anymore. Their conversation that night was different, deeper, more dangerous. Hazel spoke about her fear of becoming irrelevant without her power, without her title. Ethan listened, then said something that changed everything. Maybe strength isn't standing alone. Maybe it's letting someone stand with you. The words unsettled her, not because they were romantic, but because they were true. For the first time, Hazel saw herself not as a businesswoman, not as a divorced woman, but as a woman who had been lonely for a moment. She didn't know how to escape, but life rarely allows peace without conflict. Rumors began to circulate. Workers noticed their closeness. Whispers grew louder about favoritism, about boundaries crossed. Hazel felt the weight of her position pressing down on her again. She pulled back, creating distance, returning to cold professionalism. Ethan noticed the change immediately. He didn't confront her. He simply stepped away. The absence hurt more than Hazel expected. She had built walls to protect herself only to realize she was trapped behind them. The real twist came when Hazel's board of directors announced a restructuring plan that included shutting down sections of the factory and laying off workers. Ethan's department was on the list. Hazel was torn between loyalty to her empire and loyalty to the man who had unknowingly repaired something far more broken than a machine heart. That night, Hazel stood alone again, staring at the city lights, faced with a choice she had avoided her entire life: power or love. And this time, she wasn't sure which one she could afford to lose. Choosing each other. The night before the board's final decision, Hazel didn't sleep. She sat her day in her hotel room, with untouched documents spread across the table, numbers staring back at her like silent judges. For years, choices had been easy: logic over feeling, profit over people. Yet now, every figure carried a face, a voice, a life. Ethan's life, the factory workers' lives, and her own. She realized something painfully clear. She had mastered the art of building businesses, but she had never learned how to build a life that included someone else. The next morning, Hazel walked into the boardroom with a calm she hadn't felt in years. When the restructuring plan was presented, she did something unexpected. She challenged it. She proposed an alternative that preserved jobs, required her personal investment, and slowed expansion. The room fell silent. Some directors objected. Others questioned her judgment. Hazel listened, then spoke in it as a CEO protecting profits, but as a leader who finally understood responsibility beyond numbers. Success that destroys people, she said quietly, is not success at all? The decision passed narrowly. Hazel had won, but at a cost. Her power remained, but it no longer owned her. She found Ethan on the factory floor later that day, surrounded by the familiar noise of machines. For the first time, she approached him not as an owner or a superior, but as a woman with something to lose. She told him everything: the rumors, the distance, the fear that loving him would cost her the world she had built. Ethan listened, just as he always had. When she finished, he didn't rush to answer. He simply said, "I never needed you to be perfect. I just needed you to be real." In that moment, Hazel felt something she hadn't felt since her divorce or leave. Their relationship didn't begin with grand promises or dramatic confessions. It grew slowly. Honestly, Hazel learned to leave work behind some evenings. Ethan learned to step into her world without feeling small inside it. They didn't try to fix each other. They healed alongside each other. Love, Hazel discovered, wasn't about choosing dependence or independency. It was about balance, about standing strong individually, yet stronger together. Months later, Hazel returned to her apartment, but it no longer felt empty. Laughter filled the spaces that once echoed with silence. She still ran her empire, still made difficult decisions, but now she had someone who reminded her why those decisions mattered. Ethan didn't rescue her, and she didn't save him. They met in the middle, where respect lived. One evening, as the sun set behind the city they both now shared, Hazel realized something that would stay with her forever. She had never been weak for wanting love. She had simply been human, and in choosing love, mature, patient, and real, she hadn't lost herself. She had finally found herself.